to go out, and on your left and a bit further, and also on your left, there are toilets. When it comes to beer, we have two types today. We have a lager, Prautets, 12 degrees, and we have Saison Relax Blue, 13 degrees, both from local brewery. So enjoy. And also, when you entered our fabulous offices, you were given a survey from Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Please, if you fill that in and give it to that bucket right there, that would be very nice. Okay, so the first speaker of today's meetup is Agur. Agur is our CTO of Pipedrive. He will talk about growing from startup to mature company, and his recommendation when it comes to Estonia is go and buy some Kalev chocolate. And he was a bit shy to share that with me, but he thinks that they are second when it comes to a good quality beer. So, Agur, stage is yours.
Thank you. Welcome to Pipedrive. I guess is the first that I should say. So lovely to see all of you here. Let me know who are the early years startups or early days startups. Good. So you can go to have a beer because the most of the story is good for the scale-ups and maybe grown-up scale-ups. But then again, nevertheless, as you are planning to become unicorns as Pipedrive, then that might be useful info also for you. Very briefly about the Pipedrive and what we do and who we are. We are not officially anymore startup, as Estonian government has defined that startup has to be very many things, but until 10 years old. So we are 13 years old, so we are officially declared not to be a startup anymore by the government. But in many other respects also, we are out of this phase. So, but maybe the one most important thing that we took from our startup times and startup years are those 6 values. So great belief is that you can train any skills pretty much to anyone until this person shares the values with the rest of the organization and the rest of the team. And the importance of sharing same values is like especially well you can sense it here in our Prague office, which is pretty much like a family. I don't know how exactly they are doing that, but they are like a family. And I see that it is coming quite a bit out of those values and about a careful recruitment process, where in first phases we always test the match to values. And it's pretty easy to fail out or to drop out from the hiring process even without reaching to technical tests or to any like professional topics. It's simply because we sense that there is no great match. So have your values. That's a quick history. How we started. 2020 we became unicorns. Now we keep growing. We're about 55 nationalities, not exactly half, but 40+% female. Not too young, but still youngish company. Engineering is distributed in 4 locations. There's 2 locations in Estonia, Tallinn and Tartu, and then Prague and Lisbon are the engineering locations. And just few key facts about the Prague. We've been here for 5 years, about 40, slightly over, people working in this beautiful office right now. We've had better times. We came slightly down. Now we are growing up again. And the main topic, as I was given max 15 minutes, then let's focus on a few following slides. So my point here, and why I said that it might be boring to early day startups, because I would expect like all those startuppers just keep coding or promoting or contacting investors even during this meetup because you are constantly busy to get your product market fit proven and to find is there attraction? Can you disrupt the world? Can you make things growing fast and big? And your basically the main mood must be like experiment. And if you're tired out of that, then go back to the step one and just keep experimenting until you will find your product market fit. There are some challenges, there are some opportunities, and if you are succeeding your startup phase, and you will end up with good enough amount of paying users, and you have the good financing backing your ideas up for the future growth and build, then you potentially find yourself in a scale-up phase, which is already it's like with one leg you are kind of company, and with the other leg you are still challenging yourself constantly, am I doing right things? Am I doing things right? Do I have the right people on board? Can I move even a bit more faster? And if you lose some customers, then it's okay until you will have the 2 new customers instead of this one who just dropped out because you were pivoting your idea a bit, or you added some special feature or functionality to your product which pissed off some of your early time customers but brought 10x new customers. So you're kind of not exactly anymore full in experimentational mode, but operate, experiment. As in scale up, it's one key element is that at least to a certain level you can finance your business by yourself. The ideal sweet spot for the scale up is that if you decide to drop a growth, then you can become profitable. So that means that you must have some paying customers, but you are still brave and experimenting enough so that you're willingly taking investors' money to move even faster. But if there are the bad times, or if you like to turn yourself profitable, then that should be doable with really small changes. Again, some challenges, some opportunities. It's better to know those before. If you start with your startup, then in ideal case you visit an event like this where you will be told that what's next to expect, so you can start preparing a bit at least, not spending too much focus, but to be aware that if you grow up from 3 years old to 5 years or 7 years old, then something starts changing in your body, and you will feel yourself slightly differently. And then if you're successful with your scale up, and at one moment you end up with strategical investor or with a private equity, or some will end up already with IPO or something, and you become at one moment as a company. Which basically means that you have hell of the many paying customers, and even though you mentally and your team probably still willing to focus a lot on experimentations, because that's interesting, that's sexy, let's do something new, let's put AI everywhere, let's do blockchain, let's issue our own cryptocurrency. Let's do crazy things. Then if you're in this phase, then your first question actually should be do I still have all my customers? Are they still all smiling? Is there anything I can please them even more? And if that's all done, then okay, what is the next, or what is the crazy enough but still acceptable next experiment for those customers who I already have? Because at this moment you potentially have 100,000 customers, million customers, maybe even more, and you don't want to drop them because of one experiment. You want to keep them, and then you want to grow them and to keep them happy. So you should recognize that there are three phases. You're starting up, you're scaling up, and then you become the company. And the company doesn't mean that you can't grow anymore. Keep growing like hell. But the focus should be from experiment, rather to go like operate, build, operate, experiment. And really like closing this small session, few lessons learned. Think first, plan second, act third. If you're a startup, then you need to do those like probably 60 iterations a day. If you scale up, you probably do 1 or 2 iterations a week. If you're a company, you probably do a monthly iterations. But try to keep the order. Build bridges, not products or services. Like if you build something completely fancy and you have a dream about potential customers, but you are not building the bridge for customers why and how they can migrate for the current product to your new super beautiful product, then you won't attract too many customers because they simply don't know how to use and how to migrate and how to convert their current life to a new system. So disrupt the world, but build a bridge between today and the future. Don't just focus building on the future. Speak multiple languages. People are different, companies are different, and even if you like Pipedrive is building the sales CRM, but even then we need to please also the other departments in our customer companies. And probably the most important is like don't take a talent for granted. You might have at this moment the globally most sexiest startup, and people are coming to you. If not tomorrow, then next month someone will be even more sexy. And if you're not working with your talent every day, then they will just leave to the next sexiest company. Like. At one moment we were whining also that it's so difficult to find people and to hire people. Then we launched our own school of code. Like we take a group of interns, they are interested in IT, in software development. They don't necessarily need to have any skills. And then we run them through like very focused 3 months program. When at first some can write a code, some don't know anything about coding. But by the end of the school, they have been building with this team something that goes into the production and then that ends up in daily use. So take care of your talent. And I think that be all. Brett, how I did? Okay, good. What's the drill? Is there a room for one question if needed? Okay. Haha, lucky me.
What did you need to learn to be able to be a CTO of the scale-up or major company?
I truly don't know. We had a chat before the event with few people about the same topic. I think that it's part of marketing and being in front of right people at right time, and then the other part is probably about your delivery, so that if you will leave, like, what is your personal brand? That's what people are talking about you when you are not in this room. So like go on stages on these like events, make people to remember you, and then like leave your LinkedIn in your LinkedIn these like facts that people will feel that okay, that might be a good you to hire. So it's nothing special. Good, thank you.
Thank you very much, Agur. Great. First of all, I encourage you to use our Slido to drop the questions there. But also, of course, you have a chance to ask from the audience. That's perfectly fine. The next speaker is Ott Salmar. He's a co-founder at Hikel. And his talk is going to be about when should you start advanced FinOps processes. His recommendation when it comes to Estonia is go and visit Haapsalu. It's a small city by the sea, and especially during summer, there is a lot of going on, like concerts and some nice events, so go and visit. So Ott, the stage is yours.
I just use this one, so it's fine. We'll manage. Yeah, all good. Hello. I was told to tell a joke in the beginning to break the ice or say a fun fact, but I'm not too sure about jokes, how they come over when my silly Estonian jokes to Czech people, so breaking the ice with a personal fact, I drive a Skoda. Okay, so I will talk about FinOps. Just for you to know, I have 10 slides. This is one. Then there's the end slide, so we have 8 slides of content. Also, Brett asked me to be very, thorough but fast. So we'll take 10-12 minutes to go through it. If you have any questions, I'll be here a few more hours, probably. Okay, so starting a little bit about us. We started actually this type of a high-scale venture early this year, and already have been able to help customers reduce their spend on cloud for over 8 million in cloud spend. There's some facts and figures here, but I guess the most important thing that I wanted to share is that whenever we open the topic, it's always a question or always comes with like, okay, but we're already doing something, or we get some sort of discount from somewhere, or we already bought some savings plan or cost usage discount. So depending on the cloud you're using, it's different, but it's all different. But the key here is that everybody in the game of selling you the cloud service are always targeted towards growing your account. So when we talk about making a reduction, it's not actually the focus for those players. So obviously then the question goes to, okay, what's your secret? Why is nobody else telling me this? What do you do differently than others? I will not get into that because the topic is about FinOps. So obviously the main questions that were brought out in the agenda I will try to answer, but this is just a brief intro about us. So what is FinOps? I'm using the data that there's a FinOps Foundation in the US, so they bring out a lot of cool content. You can Google them and find them, but it's very easy to basically understand and manage your cloud costs. But the very important bit here is that when you hear the word FinOps, it immediately makes you, not maybe immediately, but it makes you go, okay, so it's financial operations, kind of like DevOps is, development operations, but it's not true. It's actually finance and DevOps put together. So it stresses the communication of and collaboration between finance and engineering. So that's maybe a good distinction to make. Now, moving forward, who does FinOps? That was also one of the questions that I put into the presentation. So we have all different types of people, but to be successful in FinOps, then it actually needs to be a collaboration between different stakeholders. And you have a list here, obviously I don't need to read them out, but the problem is often that cloud spend decisions, if they're put on people who don't really work on, they're not experts in cost management, it actually makes, it's not their top priority either. It's, falls into an existing role. Statistics here is that 68% of those FinOps roles, not necessarily separate people, they live within engineering, DevOps, or IT departments. So, if we have these under-resourced and overstretched teams, that already brings a lot of, where do you focus most of your time? So it's always a question. But the best practice is this cool picture with a lot of colors. That's also from FinOps Foundation. it's that it's the same way as it's the same way as security teams. There's a central team enabling, and then there's all the other teams that are kind of like contributing to it, but there's centrally somebody managing it. But who does FinOps? At the end of the day, the CTO should be the one responsible. Whether they delegate it to FinOps people or some other specialist, that's up to the company to decide what to do and who makes the decisions. But what's the typical FinOps strategy when we talk to people is the stuff that DevOps usually does. That's the most easy thing to understand. So we have the fishbowl example, which is the right size. Choose the right instance, the right size, right family, right region, and then you can play with the sizes to make sure that not paying too much, not having too little resource. Then we have this problem of non-production environments just being on during non-working hours. Maybe that's not a big issue in Pipedrive, but when you're a bit smaller, then if you're not doing stuff, then you can actually turn them off. That's like one good practice. And this is not FinOps. This is just what people think that it is. And then the third one, obviously, is that you can buy your savings plans from your vendors and catch maybe 20% savings around that area, even more if it's longer-term commitment. So it goes from 1 to 3 years, then 22 to 45% discount is different with each vendor. And now to my next slide. What is advanced FinOps? So it's just using a set of tools, tips, tricks, and practices to get the most out of it. And when to use it, that was the presentation headline, is these are the numbers of how much cloud spend do you have. So obviously we go down, and it's per year, obviously. So if it's between 1 and 10 million, you usually have 2 people that are responsible for it. Again, doesn't mean that it's only 2 people, doesn't mean that they're FinOps people, but the total resource put together to manage it, maybe it's divided into 4 people, but they do it little by little, so it's like a total. And obviously these are averages based on questionnaires, so it's different everywhere. But the key here is that, let's take the smaller example, 1 million a year, that's like 83,000 a month. And then you have 2 people doing it. Obviously, anything less than that, 1 or 2 is already good. So if it's more than that, obviously you can take this into consideration. But now this is the, I guess, the most important slide I'm going to leave you with is, in addition to growing the size of the team, the state of FinOps research saw that the number of tools that companies use to do FinOps is 4.1 on average. And it starts from the native tools. Obviously, when you're using, depending on the cloud, you have the internal stuff that you do, you can manage. And as you can hopefully recall, we have what's FinOps. It's to understand and manage the cloud costs. So we start with understanding, and then maybe there's more tools to dig deeper into it, and then this these other like 2 sides of this FinOps is something that is more and more growing today. But this is like the and specialist tool is a great way of putting it, but it's basically doing some activities that you're doing manually. They do it automatically, and obviously each of these tools or like you can grow into using them depending on what's your size. And now what advanced FinOps helps you achieve, depending on what services you're using, what cloud you're using, the idea of having an automated system or a tool is to actually reduce. And these are the like industry average numbers that you can achieve with no engineering efforts or no really long-term commitments either. So it's possible to do it. I think FinOps today is in a state where DevOps was like 15 years ago, where it kind of evolved out of the development teams. It's the same now. We see that there's more and more FinOps practitioners within bigger companies that are solely focusing on this one thing. So there's a lot of like savings to be had when we look at the cloud spend. Obviously AWS has advertised that they have done 170 something price reductions in their lifetime, and they're always interested in customers paying less. So it's just a helping hand to not pay too much for cloud. All right, and maybe the last thing to kind of illustrate what does it actually mean to do FinOps in an automated way. It's like traditionally you would have your usage, this is the blue line, and then you do some sort of a commitment that, okay, I believe that, we have this commitment covered, and then, we will pay this number no matter what. So two options: either you are over provisioned, meaning that you pay too much for a service you're not really needing, or you are paying on demand price, which is something that you are under provisioned. And then this is what it does. It's just dynamically in real time tracking your usage depending on the service again, and then following it up with commitments that can be traded off. I'm not going to dive deep into it, but this is like a great illustration of how it works. It can scale up and down with you depending on if you're using a new service, launching something new, moving from one cloud to the other, whatever it may be. So it's key here is that's done automatically with no downtime to your systems, no engineering and no commitments. So Brett is not here, I can see him, but I hope I made it in time. Okay, so this is my 10th slide.
Thank you. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello.
So I hope everybody read the question. I'll just try to answer it best I can. Good answer is always it depends. But to just look at the money side, AWS has a cost calculator that you can just type in what services you need. A lot of companies do it for free, that they do it for you. They look at what you're using, so then you can compare the price. And it depends on how smart you are in setting up your infrastructure, how well you know different tools, different systems, and also what your needs are. So I know a lot of companies using AWS or Google because it's very convenient and very scalable worldwide. And at the same token, a lot of companies using like DigitalOcean or IBM or other solutions that are maybe IBM not so much, but DigitalOcean compared to all the other clouds is like a really good price point, but it's also needs way more work to manage. So depends.
Fabulous. Odd, thank you very much for a lovely presentation. If you would be interested to get more information, I encourage you to grab Odd during the networking, as the other speakers as well. The next two lovely gentlemen are coming from Bolt, and they will guide us through the talk about building a secure cloud infrastructure in Bolt. We're going to have Tarmo, who is the head of InfoSec, and we have Guido, who is managing teams in Bolt. The recommendation from Tarmo is come and visit Tartu. It's a city of students. And the recommendation from Guido is visit Bok. It's a magical landscape, freshwater wetland. So stage is yours.
Thank you. It's good to be here. I'm Tarmo. I am running the InfoSec team of Bolt. I've been with Bolt for 4.5 years, and my presentation part is after Guido, actually, so floor is yours.
All right, thanks. Hello, everyone. My name is Guido. I have an Italian name, but nothing to do with Italy, except I like pasta sometimes. I joined Bolt almost 6 years ago, and meanwhile, I've done all the time, what I've done is the SRE as such. So this is mainly what I'm going to talk about, right? So a bit about background. So the good old Kung Fu Panda, right? There is some kind of magic ingredient, something, what every company has. Agur actually introduced it quite well, so I'm continuing, but slightly different area. But as a result is that every company has different teams who have different responsibilities. And SRE is a very strong responsibility, because we all know that if SREs will not do their work, or sysadmins, or DevOps guys, then eventually you have an incident. This means that the business is not working. So there is something what those teams or those people are doing that makes them somewhat special. And not this kind of work and responsibility does not usually like it's not for everyone, but so there is some kind of magic. So let's talk about this one. But before I jump to the more detailed stuff, I will tell about Bolt. Bolt is here in Czech Republic, and most likely you've used our services. But just for background, that it was established back in 2013. The guy was 18 years old, and now we turned basically basically 2023 right now. We operate in 45 countries. We have more than 500 cities. More than tens of millions, more than 10 million, maybe it's even higher. I cannot say the number right now because I don't have the number with me. Customers, and we have 3 main business verticals. So it's ride-hailing, so that you can order a taxi. There are rentals. It can be scooter, or in some countries, maybe I hope soon we will have here also Bolt Drive, so that you can take the car and you can drive. And delivery. Delivery can be also that you order food from a restaurant. Another thing is that so-called dark stores, so that you want to have you run out of milk, but you have no time to go for a shopping around the corner. So you order and then you will get it in 15 minutes, something like this. Of course, there are some other verticals like Bolt Business, but I mean, I didn't want to go away from B2C area right now. So next is that usually what I'm going to cover is that we don't talk about it because there is no need. But I thought maybe a small glimpse about the organization structure. Usually it's boring stuff. Cut me out from this, but maybe it just gives some kind of understanding. So there are different organization is structured differently, and then every or part of the organization is responsible of something, but basically we are part of the engineering. Esser is part of the engineering organization who works very closely with product, right? So product is the one who drives the features, engineering is developing them, and we are ensuring that it works. So it's someone, takes care of something happens, something goes south. Then we have this kind of weird thing called foundation. Foundation is the sort of non-functional part of the organization. So we usually can be seen as we are those guys who spend money, right? But actually we enable teams to be successful. And what said about FinOps, this is what we do. But how I see also FinOps, I would extend this part, is that part of the foundation group earns money by optimizing cloud costs, for example. So this is exactly the what SREs and these kind of people who are non-functional can optimize, because developers, they don't know, they have no control over the how many instances or how much capacity has been assigned to run their applications. We have 4 specialized teams, and these are basically in a very high level stateful team, those guys who keep the stateful stuff up and running. Usually it's related with data, right? Data is stateful. I guess everyone agrees with me. Then there is stateless, so that those guys who drive the things that you can launch and shut down when you need. Then we have a database team, because this is a different stateful, but still important, because you cannot imagine any company not having any database at all. And the fourth one is the cloud SRE. So those guys govern the cloud as such. So all the IAM policies, everything around it, who has access, what access, how we do, what we don't want to do, what we can allow, what we cannot allow. So these are the 4 teams who basically set the foundation how we use cloud. This is what we do, SREs, right? The next one is about the size of Bolt. Everything is actually big in Bolt, and we basically stand on the giants like AWS, giants like Cloudflare. These are the technologies that help us to build something that makes us successful, so that we can focus on particularly our area, what we have to do. Yes, we have microservice architecture. It's not a surprise. I think we have too many microservices. We are talking about tens of thousands of microservices. The application, the complexity is that it's not something that I call you back tomorrow that you're going to have your food or your taxi, right? So everything has to be super real time. We have to do all our checks, communicate with the driver, understand the roads, calculate the road, calculate the fees, calculate the toll roads, these kind of things, and on a real-time perspective, and then we have to commit to this, right? So this means that 1 second is a century. Talking about the sort of like just interesting question, because I know people tend to ask this, that how many machines you have. Tens of thousands of cores are working for us and doing the heavy lifting, and it's just in a cloud environment there is a saying that you may have a noisy neighbor. You have heard this? You have a noisy neighbor in the cloud infrastructure. So something weird is going on, that my instance has issue that sometimes it does not have a connectivity, or a ping got lost. So that there is a saying that you have a noisy neighbor. We are a noisy neighbor. I mean Bolt. So that you can imagine that if we will receive more than 350,000 requests per second in our service mesh, then we are making in every second more requests than some companies have per month. Maybe it's architectural issue. I totally agree. So next I would like to go and touch availability. So this is what we do. Systems have to be reliable, and the availability as such is what is our main KPIs, right? So a small glimpse to what is our approach. So AWS has a bunch of different managed services, and it's very comfortable to go and use them. But what happens if this service basically has some kind of issue, or you need to scale it up? Basically, what you do, first of all, you obviously have to have the commercial support, enterprise support, or business support, or whatever, some kind of support. Otherwise, you are not able even to create a ticket to AWS that, hey, what happened, or if you have whatever problem. So this is where early days we made a strategical decision that we do self-hosted. Why? It's because if we have so many orders, so many requests per second, and you ask Elasticsearch to scale up for AWS to scale up Elasticache service 2x or 3x, this will take 10 minutes for them. But you already know how many, some kind of range of requests per second. Requests per second traffic we have, how many requests we are missing if we are down 10 minutes, right? Because we have to do the scale up. So this is where we took the strategical decision that we do self-hosted. We actually build our stuff on top of AWS EC2's very simple bricks, and we'll take the responsibility to provide the availability. We didn't want to create a ticket to AWS that, hey guys, what's wrong? We wanted to act. So this is perhaps a small, like a secret ingredient what we have. Another thing is that fail fast. Do retries, but don't DDoS yourself. but fail fast, short timeouts, and these kind of things, because obviously we don't have time to don't have time to wait too long, because we have to escalate this to another service or use circuit breakers if needed. Another thing is that responsibility to teams. Teams have to take responsibility. They have to know what's going on. Chaos tests. I will cover this later. And this means that all the availability, everything you build in a very tough market like where Bolt operates, you have to be compliant with all the different standards like PCI and ISO 27000, ISO 9000, you just name it. Even the where each dredge bin is being sort of like under control, 14,000, right? So, quick glimpse to Stack. I'm going to run out of time soon, so, but just some colors too. So, what we have is it's just a small fraction of the technologies what we have, but as I said, we rely on the giants like AWS and Cloudflare. There is like maybe I guess most of people know many things, but anybody knows what is this? Don't use Google. Don't Google. ChatGPT is another hack. What is TIDB? Well, makes sense. DB, yeah. Percon, I guess it's known, right? So our backend has been always MySQL, but MySQL has a big issue. It can be as big as your one host can be, right? Of course, then you create a very complex topology to replicate, and you have to route your queries, selects there, and then DMLs here, random queries there, but it's not scalable. So TIDB is a next generation MySQL compatible, similar, whatever, company. PingCap is a company who created a database called TIDB. It's called TitaniumDB. Shortened one is TIDB. It's developed in China, multi-master, and works fantastically. And with TIDB, we actually solved a fundamental issue where you have single master and you need to fail over, and all the time DBAs are hoping that it's not going to happen, that you have data consistency issue, right? This is the nightmare for database administrators. And recovering, let's say, 8 terabyte MySQL database. Who has 8 terabyte MySQL database? Take some time. But yeah, it's just sort of a small glimpse of something what we have. Another thing I would like to go and touch is the post-mortem culture. So this means that to do that properly, there has to be an incident management process in place. And I know if someone says process, engineers will say, cut me out from this crap. But unfortunately, it is important. And engineers are very interested to understand what is the RCA, root cause analysis, which is post-mortem is, right? So we obviously have very proper incident management process in place, and how to make sure that people are accountable. We just set the deadline. It has to be done next business day. Otherwise, I mean, if you try to do that like a month later, no one is able to do anything. So next is that all the post-mortem has to be actionable for the teams. So this means that saying, for example, AWS lost an availability zone. Yeah, sometimes, things happen. But, okay, but what we can do, we can't fix AWS. What the team can do, how you can fail over, what is your plan B? So, if post-mortem ends that, sorry guys, I cannot do anything, then this post-mortem is not completed yet. The root cause is not actionable, so figure out. And we are pushing this, and it actually works. But, so this means that people start to go creative. No blame. No blaming culture is actually what enables people to speak up. Even if it sounds like, I'm not sure that's a good idea. But then, maybe some kind of not good idea will create a chaos theory that at one point in time, wow, actually, I got an idea from your stupid idea, and that's a good idea. Focus, also post-mortems, we have to focus on learning and fixing, and then how we can deliver this. So it has to be actionable, and then you have to deliver this, or the team has to deliver. Another philosophy, what we have is that we have no recurring incidents. The aim is that if you will receive an alert or incident because your disk got full, then you have to solve this, right? Because it's not going to fix itself. So this means that if something recurs then and comes back to you all the time, this means that the post-mortem wasn't clear enough and the root cause wasn't fixed. And another very important thing is to measure KPIs that actually matter. There are so many KPIs that how many incidents you had. Okay, that maybe makes sense. But on the other hand, if that's the main idea, if the KPI is wrong, then people have completely wrong ways how to solve it. I need to speed up. Another one, chaos. So sometimes people build something, they are surprised how the hell this even can stand up, right? If you touch it, it collapses. So things are fragile. Well, our main, very big problem is that we have no maintenance windows. And then we have global apps. So this means that everyone will get the same app. It doesn't matter if you're Africa or in Europe or in LATAM. It doesn't really matter. We have the single backend because all the queries go there because of reasons. As I said, huge amount of microservices who have their internal dependency. One service will request another one, another one. So this kind of amplification is possible. We have almost all the time zones. Because it doesn't really matter if there is a daytime here or nighttime here, you want to have your taxi. So even in one country, in one time zone, I do think we have no maintenance window, room for the maintenance window. We have millions of users, and downtime affects the trust. I mean, if you don't trust your vendor anymore, then the vendor business is pretty much going south, right? So what we do to achieve this is that we do chaos testing, and this chaos testing we are doing slightly differently. We don't generate additional workload. We start to reduce the capacity. So this means that we can create at any point in time the break point when something breaks, and then it's much easier to recover this. Also, very important thing is that we don't need to clean up things, right? Because we didn't add any data. Teams have to collaborate with each other, and this is a really, really good finding. Usually functional teams tend to be, they're afraid the first chaos test, but then as a result they will replace their unknowns with knowns. Okay, we can improve this, we can improve that. Visibility is the key. You will know your weaknesses. And yeah, develop the automated chaos testing so that the developers and development teams can use them by themselves. Building operational efficiency. Basically, almost all companies have some kind of automation somewhere, and then you start to build your own tooling, your own scripts, whatever it is, but you automate yourself out. And then you discover that we need to do some upgrade, or we have to implement another tool. So you start migrations. As a result, you will get improved architecture so that you can get higher workload, and then it starts to loop again. This is basically our model. Standardization, operational efficiency, how to do that, how we've done it is that we standardize things. This is where basically we framework things, and then from the SRE perspective and all the foundation perspective, we don't want to do anything for one team. We want to, if we are building something, we want to build this for the entire engineering organization. And then we standardize. We don't allow different tools. We say that this is our standard, use this, and move fast. So the idea of standardization is to avoid technical debt later and manage that afterwards. The culture is the key actually there. So the organizational culture, act like an owner, take responsibility, push things. If you see that something is wrong, go and talk with people. Automate yourself out from the loop is what this is how we think. The chaos tests and engineering, what I already covered. And last not least is that the telemetry data is actually very important thing, because all the people who have to take responsibility to make sure that all these kind of things are working. So this means that there has to be a data, because we want them to make data-driven decisions. We don't want any dramas, any emotions when we look about CPU graphs or packets per second or the size of the payload. We don't care. We just want to see the data. And yeah, so finally, to conclude, is that like Mr. Pink said from Kung Fu Panda, that you just have to believe it, because basically the magic ingredient is just how you do that. The culture, I think, to conclude, is the magic ingredient. And hereby I'm handing over to Tarmo.
You put me in a really tough spot, separating you from the beer. A quick overview of why I'm here. Bolt has grown. It's 10 years. Now we are not officially anymore startup, we are scale up by governmental decision. But the company has grown as well. So in the picture is 22 people. That was Bolt year 2015. Now the size is 160x basically. And information security was built actually 4 years ago. And for me it was like the movie, we've all seen it. So you have a bus that's fully loaded with explosives. The guy is running this bus, it's Guido. And I have to jump on the bus, and why I have to jump on the bus is, by the way, we have built a business. We have not thought about anything security, but it turns out in order to make a business, we need to be compliant, ISO and PCI. Who have dealt with the PCI know that it's a hell. Fortunately, we don't worship the compliance gods, as in Japan one of the data centers was blessed by Shinto monk. So we focus on knowing the risks and supporting the business growth. We also have built security with teams so that we will have automated auditability, and self-documenting technologies is one of the cornerstones there as well, and of course people. In order to support the growth, we always have to use all the available building blocks and then keep the cost under control. And we do it by isolating, for example, the compliance scopes If we run the PCI compliant services, then they are isolated. They are not run with other stuff together, because actually SaaS providers have thought about it. And if you go to AWS Compliance Program Matrix, then you will see that you have to be PCI compliant. These are the building blocks you can use, and you're automatically compliant. There are some resources. I hope the slides can be shared later, so you can click around. In order to support the growth as well, we have to choose the technologies very well, and then one of the keystones in security is actually access management, and use whatever is clever, but make sure that you end up with something that's is capable of doing the IDP globally, identity provider, which you can connect to your workforce management applications, and do the IT automation. Our IT team is very small, and the security team is also very small, and this is possible because of the automations and the right tools that we use. If I, as a security guy, start talking to engineers about risk management, then this is the same as talking about processes. They run out of the room. But actually, it's quite important to know the risks, and sooner or later they will actually jump on the train and ride with you. But if you're a startup that is focused on building your product, well, you don't want to do the risk management, but you still have to think about them. So start writing them down on the Google Sheets or Excel sheet, whatever sheet you want. Everybody have started from there. Don't be ashamed. The next tool that you will choose, make sure it will automate this compliance stuff as much as possible. And when you have passed the startup scale and move to scale up, then actually this is the time when you start to involve your product and engineering teams in decisions in a way that you will put the risk assessment as a necessary part before they can launch anything. So that make sure that they know the risks, and well, it doesn't have to be boring actually. Auditability, 4 eyes policy, it's very easy to actually implement. Infrastructure as a code. If you do it in some code repository with some additional controls, GitHub has a lot of things to help you out there. You will have actually the audit trail that every auditor is really happy, and you're okay from the compliance guard's perspective. Yeah, GitHub is actually a really good tool to support all your compliance driven efforts. And as SRE is using the infrastructure as a code to manage all the platforms, to manage your infrastructure, then actually this is one of the key points where our words kind of combine. Auditability, again, trust what's written in the configuration, but always validate. So scan your networks, scan your infrastructure, scan your network, those storage buckets. And in order to share this joy and pain, actually include always SRE engineers in audits, internal ones and external ones. They will enjoy it, every moment of it. And they will know what is all about, actually. Self-documenting technologies, again, infrastructure as a code. If you have implemented internal culture, if with change approvals and everything is recorded in the code repository, then actually you will have a self-documenting and audit trailed setup, and it's really good for security purposes. And people, of course, and this is the hard part actually. Bolt almost failed in early phase. It was called MDocs at that time, actually. Because they hired everything they could get their hands on, and they couldn't deliver actually. And they did a restart by actually firing everyone, and started focusing on hiring only the people who knew what they're doing. So it's It's a hard decision, and it's actually not possible to everyone. But if you need to build fast, then you need to at least initially hire mid or senior level people. And as a security person, I can say that I'm not making Bolt secure. People are who work there. So it's important to have fun with them. And one of the greatest compliments I have gotten is that security in Bolt is nothing that is usually being afraid, but it's rather like good people where you can go and get good advice. And I will leave you with a slide for you to figure out what is the thing that SRE and InfoSec both hate. Flakes, snowflakes. And it's not a product. Actually, this is the things that startups quite often do. They have to deliver something quickly. They deploy something, make it very important part of the system, and then let it run for years. And then it turns out that, well, it's out of any support cycle anymore. The software is not being updated. It's old. Nobody knows how it works. It's undocumented and it's unsecure. And this is the worst nightmare for me and for Guido as well, actually, because he has to maintain it. Thank you from my side. Any questions?
People learn from postmortems, and it's not just a write-only document.
I can answer that one. Basically, I read all the postmortems, and if I don't like the information, I will actually comment it in the postmortem and ask the person to provide a sensible answer, or the manager of the person to provide a sensible answer. I hope it answered this.
Thank you. Constant load growth lead to service availability issues. For sure, most of them can be resolved with horizontal, vertical auto-scaling. But probably there was some interesting cases when you faced a bottleneck that can resolved only via system design refactoring.
Well, yes. Theoretically, if you scale and everything is good, right? Practically, things don't scale like you scale, because there is a gap at one point in time. You are missing some kind of requests, then it amplifies and something else explodes. So this means that the just dumb scaling because of the CPU or network traffic, this means that perhaps you scale it the wrong way. So, for example, that you have a microservice that connects with some kind of like database, let's say it like this, and then you just scale it without understanding what you scale. Then you're going to hit the database connection limits, right? So this means that just doing something that you don't know what you do is even worse than you don't do, perhaps. Horizontal, vertical, yes, they can solve both, but not in an uncontrolled manner. So, in somewhat, I agree, but the devil is in details.
Thank you. We will take one more question. How much longer takes a commit transaction with a multi-master configuration with the IDB?
It kind of depends of the query. I mean that in MySQL environment, you can get the response within a few milliseconds or under millisecond in some cases. Yes, it adds the latency, but and in some cases it's not good. I mean the TIDB, having a distributed nature, this means that it has a trade-off, and the trade-off is the latency. So it's architectural decision. I would say that I'm talking about the microseconds level, microsecond scale. Maybe 100 microsecond is what it had, but it really depends of the infrastructure. What kind of instances you're using, for example, in AWS. If you're using throttled, the T-type instances, of course, that's already a huge mistake to do that. So know your machines, know your requirements, dependencies, but we are talking about in millisecond scale.
Thank you very much. I will ask Tobias, Ruben, and Philip to maybe grab Guido and Tarmo during the networking and ask the question by themselves due to some timing. Thank you very much, gentlemen, again. Now we're gonna have 15 minutes break, go eat, and then we're gonna have 3 more fabulous talks from our speakers. Okay, Hello. Alrighty, beautiful human beings. Please come back to seating area for the second part of the meetup. Please finish the lovely meals, grab your drinks, and come and grab a seat.
Thank you. Hello, hello.
That's all.
Come, people. Come and join us for a lovely talk from our next speakers. I still see that majority of people are in the eating area. Please come and join us here. You will have more time after the talks to dig into more food and drinks. Before we start, I would like to thank again to Revolci, recent partner of the year of the Google, who is helping us sponsor this event, and also Ministry of Foreign Affairs, especially Czech Embassy in Tallinn. Thank you very much for allowing us to be here and have all these lovely speakers who flew specially just for this event. Okay, so the next talk will be from Alexandra Goldstvart. She's a software engineer at Vice, and she's going to talk about impacting central bank regulations to bring them in line with our business model. Her recommendation is to visit Pärnu, nice city with the beach and the sea. However, she recommended there are not a lot of sunny days left, so you rush to visit the city. Okay, Alexandra, the stage is yours.
Hello, everyone. That's definitely starting differently with applause. So I'm Alexandra. I work at Wise for 5 years as software engineer, and I specifically focus on the Brazil team, meaning that we are trying to serve our Brazilian customers with Wise. So let's start from the beginning. What is Wise? Wise is a global technology company which moves the world's money. With Wise account and Wise business, you can hold over 40 currencies, you can move money abroad, and you can transfer money as well. You also can have businesses, and the Wise platform also might use Wise through the API to serve the businesses. It was founded by Christian Pavet in 2011 under its original name TransferWise. And I think currently we have around 60 million people and businesses using us. Whenever we think about our product, we think about money without borders, and this is like a 4 pillars we're aiming for, which is instant, convenient, transparent, and eventually free. Later, when I'm going to talk about like improvements we've done in Brazil with the central bank integration, I think we should keep in mind them. Talking about the integration, so to have the coverage all over the world, you need to have a way to do it. And there's 2 ways currently. You can have a bank partner who gonna actually do everything for you. You just have this partnership and report all the transaction to the partner, and that's it. The second way is to have the direct integration. That means you're going to have the license and you directly integrate into the central bank of the country. The second option is what we are trying to do, if possible, because of the few things. First, you have your own control. You don't have the middleman, so you can do whatever you want. The transfer might be cheaper. And secondly, second reason is the cost. You might save money. You don't need to pay for partnership. This is the countries listed here who has direct integrations. And also I want to mention on that slide that it might comes with the challenges, the direct integration, because you're going to have different obligations to do. You have like a global business, but you need to act as you are inside that country, like as a local bank. So you need to fit your global model into the local requirements. And since I shared that I work in Brazil team, I want to share how the process of getting the license was for our team, which improvements were made, and also maybe at the end I will share quickly how this works on the background. So getting the license in Brazil meant for that we can convert the money and transfer money from Brazil and to Brazil. This comes with obligation. This trade operation needs to be done by us every day. Reports on transactions, do arbitrage and trading. Reports on transaction mean that whenever we have any transaction from Brazilian real or to Brazilian real, we need to gather all the data about that transactions. For example, the sender name, sender identification number, recipient information, address, whatever comes with that, and we need to report this to the central bank platform. During the day, we do all these transactions, and at the end of the day, we do trading to cover the currencies we were operating during the day. To do the trading, we use the dollars, the USD amount, and we basically exchange it for Brazilian real. However, to get that amount in dollars, we do this intermediate step. It's quite hard to explain. It's called arbitrage, but we do exchange different currencies to dollars in order to do the trading after. This whole operation is done at the end of the day just to cover all the transactions we've done during that day. And I just share this information because I'm going to use it later to share how we improve that processes. But talking about the first negotiations, we have the banking team at Wise, as we operate globally, and banking team is basically responsible for negotiating with the partners or central banks. And our banking team had a very long negotiations, and we got the first good deals, which is written here. Basically, we were the first foreign exchange broker who was allowed to do the arbitrage. Previously, it was allowed to be done only by banks, so that's like a first nice thing we've got from that integration. And the second one also relates to the arbitrage topic. Previously, what other banks were doing, they were collecting different from Brazilian real transactions during the day, summing them up, and doing the arbitrage. Doing the same for the two Brazilian real transactions, summing up and doing the arbitrage. Now we can sum all these directions together. This eliminates like 50% of the things we need to report for this arbitrage operation. Maybe it's quite like finance-wise information, but for us it was a pretty nice improvement on the services. And now we are at the position that we have the license in Brazil. We do report every day, everything works fine, we are happy, we progress with our business. However, this question how to improve, still very relevant. And we decided to continue a conversation with Central Bank so that maybe we can change something to succeed even more. And the first change was around the transfer natures. Transfer nature is basically the purpose of the transaction which is required to be reported by the central bank. For example, one purpose can be sending money to pay for your education. The other purpose might be paying for the bills. And there's like 200 variation of that. It consists of the numbers, so hard to understand which transfer nature to report. And we've done a lot of negotiations, and at the end we agreed that 8 is fine to choose between, which is like a dramatical improvement for us because it much clearer how to understand which transfer nature to report. It makes us like run more convenient business and so on. And previously also, it's like I'm talking about the rules by the country. So the business was responsible to define the transfer nature. And what's changed is now we're letting the customer share the purpose of the transfer, and we reuse that information for reporting. Also make it a little bit more conveniently. This is like how regulation-wise it was changed, and we basically apply these changes in our system. However, now the second change was even more exciting. How this works is that I mentioned previously we do reporting, arbitrage, and trading. All that happens by sharing the XML file formats to the Central Bank of Brazil. So each file costs us money. It costs around 2 BRL, 2 Brazilian real, which is like maybe 50 cents dollars, maybe less, comparing on the middle market rate, but we pay for each file. Now, previously we were reporting each transaction in one file, and we had a lot of transactions. I will share the number later. And what we managed to agree and change in the country is that now we can aggregate transactions. So it can be multiple transactions in one file. It seems like a very easy change if you think about that, but it was like a huge negotiation, and we made this like during like certain time of operating. And here we took the graph, we took the information and made the graph. Like on the right-hand side, you can see WISE and the amount of transaction reported in July of 2023. And imagine now, like if you would pay for each file, like the number, you can count. I'm not allowed to share the numbers here, by the way. Small secret. Yes, and now I wanna share this number. Yeah, you might guess what it is. I was having like, whenever I look at this number, it reminds me the service availability for, yeah, so it looks like, but actually it's not, it's the cost drop because of the aggregation of the files. So basically by aggregation, that's, now we pay less by this %. So it's like a dramatic change for us, and it's actually like talking about the pillars I mentioned in the beginning. This is about the cost, this is about the eventually free transfer, so we managed to make even less fees for Brazilian customers just by starting aggregation the transactions. So yes, there's like more changes to share, but they're like very finance specific. I'm not gonna pay attention to that. The main ones I shared was already in that presentation. Now it's time just to share how it works on the background, the XML file sharing. So we use event-driven architecture at WISE. So we use Kafka events to know about different state changes. And we do have this transaction, like transfer service, we call it, which is responsible to change the states of the transfer. The transfer state is like a final state when recipient gets his money. So whenever the transfer is in transfer state, we receive the event and start processing this in our service, which is like reporting service. So how we start processing that? We have this state machine, and the first state you can see is the new state. But I think it's important to mention that whenever we create this object into the database called transfer report and its snapshot, we do it while creating the task. Task is also like internal library we have at WISE, but it's basically like a job where you can set up like a scheduled time when it can run, and which saves the result to the database as well. So if the task succeeds, you see that this is succeeded in the database. We also have like a very nice UI for that to see it. You don't need to go into the database. But if it fails, with some exception, then you can also see it. That means that you're not going to lose any information if something was failing. And at the end, you can rerun it again, or you can configure that maybe if some data wasn't there, it will be rerun automatically like in some period of time. So it's very valuable like idea of not losing any data. Now, when transfer report is created in new state, we have another job which picks the report. because we need to do this reporting in the operational hours of Brazilian Central Bank. So let's just wait for that to pick it, move it to the ready state, and upload the XML file into the platform. Whenever the file is uploaded, that's, by the way, the name of the file, COM0021. We have a lot of them for different operations. This one for the simple one, for reporting the individual transaction. We move the state to reporting, and basically, yeah, by this we know that we reported everything, we were just waiting for the reply. And then there's like two variations of how it might end. We either going to receive the file which ends with R letter, and that's going to mean whenever we parse it that everything went fine and we can move the transfer to reported state. Or we're going to receive the file with an E letter at the end. That means that something wrong happened on the central bank platform. We will move it to the inner state internally, and mostly like it's going to be the manual investigation of what happened. Like usually it might be just like some downtime or something went wrong, but it's a very rare case. Usually it doesn't happen. So that's just like a small introduction of how it works on the background for our reporting system. Yeah, I think that's it from my side. Thank you very much. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Alexandra, for amazing presentation. Why use Wise instead of Bitcoin?
It depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for something what is controlled and applied like in terms of, you know, following all the regulations and want to make it like with the real currencies, then you use Wise. If you have some other plans to make something secretly, you can use a Bitcoin. But yeah, general, I don't have any advice, but if you want to work with the currencies, then use Wise.
Thank you, and thank you, Michal. It was expected. Question from Vladislav. What's the trade-off you faced when switching to transaction aggregations?
Yeah, to be honest, technically wise, it was super easy. Like the whole problem was about the regulation and just having the conversation and trying to share the experience. And also like I shared the cost, but imagine the load on the service as well. The amount of files we were uploading, like the central bank also receiving a lot of files, and they're receiving it for all the banks from Brazil. So I think that this change from our side was very easy to do. For the Brazilian authority, it's made a lot of profit as well in terms of the loading, the heaviness they have on their service. Yeah, I think I answered the question.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Alexandra. Our next speaker is Mart. He's a CTO at Fractional. And his recommendation for Estonia is to visit Hiiumaa Island, one of the second biggest islands in Estonia. And he said that it's very relaxing and meditating. So that's the recommendation. Mart, the stage is yours.
Hello. Before I start with the presentation, I want to say that we have had a marvelous day in Czech Republic. We visited a lot of companies, a lot of leaders, a lot of people, and it was all extremely fun, ended with VR adventure, so it was awesome. So the two guys who actually are responsible are there, Stepan and Peter. I would really like to give you a big applause of actually arranging all of this. Thank you. And the second kudos I would like to give to Pipedrive to actually hosting this, and the second kudos would be that you guys thought of tribes and missions. So we are today Estonian delegation tribe, and we have 2 missions to see that if we have some actually things that we can cooperate between Estonia and Czech Republic. And also my second mission is to maybe give you a new perspective or a new idea about something that maybe you haven't heard of. So let's go. So first question maybe is that, have you ever heard about the role that is fractional CTO, fractional CPO, fractional CEO? Anything? Raise your hand if you have actually heard about it. Awesome. 3 hands. This is exactly the same amount of hands when I have usually introduced my startup. If they know it. So it probably shows that this is something that I can maybe introduce to you. This is my representation of actually from the information space that I live in, because that everything that we know is coming from our information space. My information space is mainly UK, as my first startup was Inslee, and it's actually doing insurance, and you all know all the insurance is being done in UK. Doesn't matter what you insure, if you insure a Skoda in Czech Republic, trust me, it's actually insured in the London, right? Lloyd's and everything is doing there. Right, so my insight comes from the several networks and groups that I'm in. The very first group that I heavily recommend everybody who is working in the engineering leader is the CTO craft. It has over 5,000 members. There's a lot of recommendation about books, about the technologies that are happening. People are sharing their experiences. There's events, real-life events actually happening. So I really recommend to join that. And another, like actually fractional consultant community started a month ago, which is already 800 people. So that's what I have myself feeling that the trend is going very heavily up with the fractional roles as a C-level positions. Right. So just a quick few words that I have some experience in all kinds of roles. So there's a traditional CTO. I have been in Inslee, which I was a part of the co-founders. I have done Aurora, Apollo Group. Apollo Group is one of the biggest companies in Estonia with a little bit less than 4,000 people in it. So I have been interim role. I cannot say the company because it's under NDA, but it was in a public listed company. There was a huge fight, actually, media, everybody were super pissed. And there was a fight about CTO leaving, and I was doing the interim role there. And also the fractional CTO things that I have done in fintech, automotive, insurtech, government, and it has been in the sizes of 5 to 500 people. And even today, I am actually consulting Iceland government, and also trying to do as a fractional CTO, helping to build insurance company in Estonia. Right. So who is a fractional CTO? Very interesting role, actually. So. I think it's one of the hardest roles that I have ever been into. I think it's the hardest from the traditional CTO, and it's definitely harder from the interim CTO, because you need to grasp all of the business, their tech stack, everything that you have to like actually acquire it with hours, right? If you are a traditional CTO, you have years and years, you build it, it's your baby. And you know everything what's happening there. If you're interim CTO, you have a little bit more time. You have definitely more responsibilities. You are just trying to get the interim period of actually getting it done. And the fractional guy is I hate the word consultants, as I hate consultants. But it is a little bit of the consultants a bit. You're doing that for a fractional basis. You're doing that for several companies at the same time. And it is actually beneficial to all the stages in the companies. So if you are a pre-seed startup, there's no way in hell you can actually afford yourself a proper CTO. If you're not a founder and you're a CTO, then you cannot hire a CTO. It's not even thinkable, it's just absurd thing to do. Put your money to product investment and do all of that, right? So here comes in the fractional CTO who can give you the insight to actually go on the very correct path. And then get a very better quick start with a less potential technical debt in the future. And also, if you are a well-established business, even with thousands of employees, then you tend to be, what happened to me actually, is that you are starting to become in your own bubble, right? So you are thinking that you're doing the most awesomest thing in the world. At the same time, you might need a fresh look at the things, but maybe it's no point to just switch the CTO just to get a new perspective. So maybe it is wise just to get a CPO, CEO in. Right, so already covered a little bit that it is a super senior role, which means that you have to have experience from different companies. You cannot be a fractional CPO or a CTO from tomorrow if you haven't had experience from different scales in companies. So it's because then your insight is going to be only
It has a very like one vertical. It's just not gonna do any help. You got to be super fast. You got to be super fast to getting to know what's the business, what's the technology, and also you need to keep yourself updated what's happening in the world, right? So if there is some trends are happening, then you got to learn it, not in a very like detailed way. You have to know what Kubernetes is, but you don't have to be able to actually configure it yourself, right? So that's the level that you should actually keep. Right. So I already mentioned that I was that you get to be in your own bubble, right? That happened to me actually when I was starting an insurance startup. I did it for 7 years, and I think the last 2 years I was living in a crazy bubble, right? I was thinking that I'm doing everything correctly, and I didn't pay a lot of notice what's happening outside of the world. So that's actually a very wrong thing to do. So for me, the wake-up call was that I joined the CTO craft, so then I kind of broadened my mind and get to know what other people are doing. And now is the pitch part is that what I want to do, I have been wanting to do for years now. I wanted to do a CTO, I don't know, the guild or association in Estonia, just to actually support each other. But now, when today I'm in Czech Republic, I have a feeling that we can do it combined, because there's 25 CTOs in Estonia, so there's a little bit more in Czech Republic, so it might be even something to think about. So this is something that I'm definitely going back to Estonia with a lot of new contacts with the CTOs from Czech Republic and a lot of contacts from Estonia. So maybe we can establish this CTO association or a framework or a community or something like this in the short coming year. So, anyways, that's it. I wanted to be quick. I hope I was quick enough. I think that this is something that you can think of. That if you are, it doesn't matter what scale your business is at the moment. You just think that if you might need a fresh look on things, a product side, a financial side, or technology side, it doesn't really matter. So just to think that this is something that is trending up right now, at least in the UK and in Poland. And just to think about maybe it can help you to do your business. Thank you.
Thank you, Mart, for insightful presentation. Let's proceed with the questions. Question from Mert. Does the fractional CTO role compete with our complement traditional CTO roles?
I love the name. That's awesome. Very similar to Mart. The 100% complement. It doesn't compete at all. It doesn't take away the CTO job at all. For example, that fractional CTO by definition is not allowed to fire people, right? So and now if it's just you cannot have a person who can onboard or offboard people just to be on the fractional side. So definitely it is a complements the CTO or a CPO or a CEO.
Thank you. Question from Vladislav. Do you see potential issues with the trust level in between company employees, aka the veterans, and the fractional temporary CDO?
See it every day. So very good question in that sense that if somebody comes to your company, especially if it's a consultant or whoever it is, the very first reflection or the impression that the people get, there's gonna be a change, right? Change management as a whole is a thing, right? Nobody likes to change, but at some point it becomes normal and becomes good, right? So it's just you have to do your job well, right? Every company is different, so you got to approach these people, and you cannot say that. And how I solved it myself is that I talk with people. I think I talk with absolutely everybody when I'm in the company and trying to do the fractional CTO job. Then I try to talk everybody, so to get the feeling what they are all about. And usually my explanation of what I'm trying to do here is calming them down, and after that it usually is okay. Usually, sometimes not. So.
Thank you. Question from Marek. What are some of the challenges you encounter when you need to lead a team in the role of fractional CTO?
One of the biggest challenges that I have had is that the people will expect a lot from you, right? So that if you're expressing yourself that you will do X, Y, and Z, they are going to expect that you're going to do all the alphabet, right? So, and this is the toughest part to the expectation management in that side, is that the people are like literally asking me maybe to fix accounting, right? So I'm very sorry, I cannot fix accounting. I can be helping you with the business model because that's something I like to do, but at the same time I cannot do accounting and whatever, right? So this is the heavy part usually what comes with the management roles, that they expect to do absolutely everything.
Fabulous. Thank you very much,
you.
Matt. And last not least, we have Jose Ernesto Suarez with the talk about reimagine cloud interfaces, cloud for large infrastructures. And his recommendation is to visit Lift 99. You can find it in creative area in Tallinn, and you can definitely feel those startup vibes there. So, Ernesto, stage is yours.
Hello? It works. Good evening, Chair, everyone. I want to bring like a very special talk today, very personal. Basically, I want to share an idea with all of you, mostly knowing with the people that I was sharing the stage today, people that is creating like real impact, and they are creating tools that they are using by millions of users. And I want to bring a vision about from where we come, what are the things that we left behind, and what I think the challenges that we have today, and share an idea how I think that we can solve them. And of course, I would like to get some feedback. Don't work very well, actually. Some feedback, because this is about establish a conversation. Well, talking about me, I'm a system engineer. I'm talking on the field more than 20 years. I work in a lot of places, last of them at United Nations, building from scratch the FinOps platform for them. And well, from where we come from? We come from looking for having big computers. We want as bigger as we can, always, for put a lot of stuff inside. Later we are rooted, no? We want to isolate things. We want to have the proper place for everything running. And later, we do clustering, because all these big computers we can put together for run all these big things that we want to do. And later, we do the virtualization, because we want to create more computers for put inside these other computers, that group of the things that we have. Basically, computers inside the computers. I'm going to change here. And we create a lot of density here. And after that, basically we create like some config management tools, because we need to keep a lot of things in control. But we want more, was not enough, and then a Perch Cloud. And some people start to think if we become ethereal, of course not. Basically we create software that help us to provision infrastructure, but it's just software. And this appearing of the cloud democratize the access to the data center. Now each one can have his own data center, and this is good. Then with this hardware plus APIs, we did the revolution of the cloud, and now if we were big, now we are more big. If we just rooted, now we degroup it, and appears containerization and a lot of tools that help us to do things bigger. Before we were doing clustering, and now we are talking about global distribution of resources. And when we are doing virtualization, now we are talking about serverless, platform as a services, everything as a service. And not talk about density when we are even global. And I don't do config management anymore. Now I do orchestration. Now I have a lot of automatons, pipelines, mastodon of processes moving every day for keep all these things running, right? But we want much more. But I see a pattern, no? Basically, we are doing the same that we were doing before, but in a bigger extent. And my question here is like, how are you feeling here? How are you feeling in this new place where any of us need to live now? We overcome hardware. We don't care anymore. We do Raspberries. We do the last Mac Studio. We don't care if the hardware fails or not. We system engineers, basically, we are gluing, operating, and building software and creating layers and layers and layers of this software. Sorry for the analogy, but for me nowadays, my kernel is kind of compiler, buses everywhere. I don't know how the new generations write pipelines without mastering Linux. I don't know it. And yes, software is the mother of the cloud natives. We, operators, we are always gluing these layers of software for make a bigger system. And blessed the smart ones that are able to do things with just a couple of pipes, right? JQ 2012. But what breed of software we're talking about? Are we talking about any kind of software? No, of course not. We are talking about this guy, Unix. Here's the original paper, 1970, when these people in Massachusetts talk about input-output systems, talking about things about this geometry and functional programming. There is people that were doing maths, and they came up with this idea for make these machines work. And yes, here is some touch of this category theory, if anyone heard. Because at the end, everything is maths. And we, of course, with the algebra, we did the logic, but we also know how to solve equations with algebra, right? We use graph theory every day, for get sorted distances, for binary trees, right? But do we use category theory nowadays? I don't know how many Haskell developers are in the audience, because of course they do. I think that probably will be more Excel users in the audience, or maybe in this room more Unix users. You are using that. This is about going from A to B. Exists always a function that brings us from one place to another. And also, when we can go from B to C, exist also morphisms that allow us to go not from A to B and from B to C, but from A to C. But now, this is a funny thing. Now that is all this cloud private, we don't need to go from the data center to the public cloud and from the public cloud to the private cloud, We can go directly from A to C because now appears this cloud democratization, a big win for open source, and now any of us can build like if it was Google or Amazon with his own servers, right? But what is the idea? Where I want to arrive? What is what I want to share with you? My idea is basically that we can use all these concepts that we got from the past for build what is coming now in the future. And I would like to keep doing the same and make it as simple as possible until someone smarter than us borns and will tell us a better way to do it. Okay? We, operators, a lot of operators, or the super operator, we are always doing the same. We are gluing layers and layers of software and make it work for have a bigger system. And now we have the new player on the scene, right? This guy says that he's a very, very, very important player. I don't know, he's so important like that, but actually very important. I'm right, he's right. And with that, in Glassity, the company that I found 9 months ago, we are playing with that. Of course, we own our automation, and with that, we create an autopilot that anyone can reduce 50-10% without touching a single server, but this is not AI. We are playing with LLMs, we are playing Ruby, we are connecting with a lot of APIs, and we are touching hardware for doing FinOps and CloudOps, okay? We are talking about change tools that operators can take days and do it in seconds. This is a different order of magnitude, and this means impactful. Now we can go from A to B to C and to D, from A to D, and talk human language and touch infrastructure. This is a different game. But the question is, how much open we are to talk about our processes and how much our interfaces evolve. Because we know that with 1D we can do text, with 2D we can do some tables, drawing, functions. There is some people that get fancy on 3D, and you can represent more vectorial stuff or going virtual. But how many dimensions do you need to manage that? This is cloud native. And here we talk dimensions like time, cost, size, throughput, users, lot of things. And there you need to do a lot of stuff. How to represent that? How you go from A to B? No? This is the question. I can bring an example. For example, we are using this Go Code SQL, a small LLM that allows us to go from natural language to SQL queries. That means that we can query the database just talking natural language. This is changing the game. And yes, what you cannot see, you cannot manage. And this is the dilemma of our company. When you don't have enough visibility, how do you expect to manage that? Now is new operating system appears, like Vision OS. Now is a new generation of people, new engineers that come from this generation that born with PlayStation. They are more open to new interfaces, right? Our mission in Glassity is make the complex cloud as transparent as glass. This is your cloud. This is what you can see in your cloud. Will be easier to understand. And yes, we want to bring massive usability to the cloud, reducing cost, empowering decision makers. But since I don't have so much time to explain that, I will tell you next time that you come to Tallinn to visit us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ernesto. I guess we came to the end. If there are some questions from the audience? No. Okay. Once more, thanks to all the speakers, to Ernesto, to Mart, to Ot, to Agur, to Guido, to Tarmo. There is a little something prepared for you. Thank you, Revolji, for preparing this event with us. Thank you, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And now the networking can start, guys. So you have fun, dig into food, dig into drinks, and come next time to some Pipedrive meetups. Thank you very much.
Thank you.